brought to you by Brand South Africa.
Godfrey Mutizwa caught up with Robert Greenhill, Managing Director of the WEF, and asked him for the key outcomes of this year's summit.
It's a time when globally things are very bad. It's a time when aid budgets are being cut. So traditionally Africa, there would be a sense of pessimism. But it's exactly the opposite. There's a sense of energy, of possibility, and also of impatience.
From amongst the participants that you were able to engage, government, private sector?
Absolutely. I mean, you see within the private sector, and particularly the African private sector, a real sense of them stepping forward, making investments, making things happen, but wanting to see the infrastructure and the enabling conditions in place. We also had a number of these young global shapers, these 20-year-old extraordinary Africans, challenging the leaders, challenging all of us to actually move further, faster.
Yeah.
And so, you know, a real sense of opportunity, but also a real sense of needing to step up the pace even more.
Indeed. Now, the main theme of this conference was transformation, transforming
Yes.
Africa. Now we're watching Africa transform, and it's an important part in the development of the continent. Now, transformation of people, of countries, of a continent are long-term processes.
Yeah.
From where you stand, from some of the discussions that you have seen here, how optimistic are you that this transformation is, number one, sustainable, and secondly, really, really well set, and we're likely to see more changes in the future?
Well, I think it's at an early stage, but it's tremendously exciting. You know, one of the sessions we had here was around the whole area of Grow Africa, which was actually trying to bring together global CEOs, national CEOs, heads of government, heads of development agencies, talking about how they could actually work together at a very large scale to actually help accelerate Africa's food security. Now, that's very different from the small little projects on the ground or the great statements of the G8. It's actually something much more focused and concrete, and that's actually being taken to the G8. So actually at the G8 there will be African voices presenting African-led projects, but with global support from the private as well as the public sector. That's never happened before.
Yeah.
So if that kind of thing can happen, there truly will be a transformation.
Yeah. Now, of course, WEF is known as a place where people come and communicate and network, and
Right.
that's where probably some of the greatest value comes from. Now, from some of the engagements with the government leaders, and I focus specifically on government leaders, the politicians, for instance, because we do know that it's easy for them words to trip off their mouths, but to actually commit and make change real is difficult. What did you see?
Well, what's interesting, we've been in Africa, as you said, for over 20 years. And what we try to do is create a space for real conversation. You know, we're a neutral platform, we're not taking specific sides. So what we actually saw here was an informality and an openness of discussion with government leaders, which is very rare. And with that also, I think, a real focus on, so what is going to be different in agriculture, in infrastructure, and some of these other issues. And in a number of areas, I think there is a real sense of possibility. But what we'll be doing next year is coming back to these same issues to actually trace whether there's been progress or not.
Right, follow-ups.
Absolutely.
And we know that next year is going to be in Cape Town, back
Yes.
in Cape Town. Now, of course, there is value in bringing these conferences to these other parts of Africa that
Very
are
much
not so well known. I mean, everybody knows Cape Town, the systems
Yeah.
works, etc. But what value have you been extracting yourselves as WEF from your engagements in coming out to places like Ethiopia, Tanzania in 2010, etc.?
Well, you know, our mission is improving the state of the world. And what's been exciting for us with Dar es Salaam and now with Addis is helping actually bring the world to countries who have made tremendous progress, but whose progress is underknown and underappreciated. And we're seeing this in Ethiopia. The energy, the enthusiasm here, the potential here is so different from people's images from the famines of 20 or 30 years ago. And what's interesting actually is that we're not only bringing the world to Africa with this, we're actually bringing different parts of Africa in here. So one of the most exciting things is how many of your colleagues from South Africa or from Nigeria were coming here for the first time. So if we can actually help create those links, not only between the world and Africa, but within Africa, that for us is very exciting. So that's one thing where we see real value. The second thing is, out of this, if we can actually create the space for the real, serious, honest conversations to debottleneck some of these problems, that's the other exciting thing we get out of this.